Hey everyone, God bless you, and thanks a lot for tuning in. I have a reflection that I have prepared for you that I'm entitling No Surrender, What to Do When Resistance Seems Futile. You might have noticed that in my recent reflections, I've been focusing a lot on demonology. This is because I have just finished teaching a 6-lecture series on the subject. It was greatly edifying for me, and that series we will publish, God willing, next week so that it's there for the beginning of the Dormition Fast on the 1st of August. I hope it will be of great consolation and instruction for you as it was for me. The reflection that I'm bringing to you today comes very much from that engagement with the church's teaching on the subject of spiritual war and the devils. One of my sons recently sat down with me and asked me what I had gathered from this series, if there was anything that I wanted to share with him in particular. I've been a priest for a long time and have taught, as all priests do, a lot, of course, about spiritual war and temptation and the devils and how our Savior triumphs over them definitively by his own saving deeds, and also in the lives of his people, whom he inspires to victory. But I was so happy. One, I was just happy to have a son ask me a question like that. And I felt so blessed to, as a priest, be learning. And I feel that is what I've been doing for the 30 years that I've been a priest. I've been growing in studying and falling and getting up and falling and getting up and trying to become more solid as a person, as a Christian person before the Holy Trinity. And this series definitely greatly helped me in that matter, and I hope it will also help you. Some passions are just relentless. Some aspects of the spiritual war in each person's life appear to be unconquerable. This is not abnormal. If you feel this way, that there's something in your life that you have tried and tried and tried to uproot, something you've tried to weed out of the garden of your heart, something that you've tried to expurgate, and you haven't been able to do that, you are not in any way unique. It is the common witness of Christians that there are some passions in each of our life, sometimes one in particular, that are just vicious, and resistance to them seems futile. And I'd like to give you some counsel, particularly from St. Nicodemus of the Holy Mountain in his majestic treatise, The Unseen Warfare. I want to share some encouragement from him to you on what to do when resistance seems futile, okay? First of all, I'm affirming that that's a normal experience. Just think of the great Maccabees, the great freedom fighters, right? This is 2nd century BC. These are unbelievably devoted servants of the true God who are resisting what appears from all intents and purposes to be a completely irresistible Greek pagan onslaught of the Holy Land. They're outnumbered, completely outmanned. The Maccabees are a small freedom-fighting force. And many people simply judged the resistance to Greek paganism to be futile. And as a result, laid down their faith, laid down their arms, lost their salvation, and compromised themselves. But these Maccabees, time after time, Matthias, Judas, Simon, John, this incredible father, then his sons, constantly refused to give in to the notion that resistance was futile. Even if there were only 6,000 or 8,000 of them, and they were facing a force of 150,000 soldiers, and 50,000 cavalry, and hundreds of armed elephants. Even in the face of that, they did not lay down their weapons. That is a picture. That kind of battle in the Old Testament is a picture of spiritual war. And that's the first thing that we've got to grasp, is that resistance is never futile. They had a code, those Maccabees had a code word, a secret code word that they used to strengthen themselves. And it's a window through which you can see the source of their victory. Their code word was God's help. God's help, brother. God's help, sister. That's what they said to each other constantly. And this is exactly what we need to think in our own conflicts, in our own spiritual war. We have to remember that there is no victory without God's help, and there is no defeat if we rely on God's help. So even when we're outmatched, even when resistance seems completely futile, that is when we need to judge the circumstance, recognize we're completely unable, but call for help. Let me read some words from St. Nicodemus of the Holy Mountain to encourage you. If you feel sometimes such a strong upsurging of sin that resistance to it will seem impossible, and the very zeal to oppose it will appear exhausted, you'll feel like you just have no motivation to fight. Take care not to give up the struggle, but rouse yourself and stand firm. It is a subterfuge. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? It's a deceit of the evil one. It's a trick. It is a subterfuge of the enemy, who, with the thought that resistance is hopeless, strives to undermine your firm stand by making you lay down all your arms, to force you to surrender to him. Do not give ground. What a beautiful thing. That's step one. Don't give up the struggle, even though you feel like it's completely worthless to resist. That itself is a trick. That's number one. The second counsel of St. Nicodemus about what to do when you feel resistance is futile is to recognize that you have not yet fallen. Just because you feel resistance is futile, and just because you feel maybe already your affections have gone over to the enemy, maybe your affections have already have already joined with the sin, St. Nicodemus says that's not sin. And until your will have taken action, there is no sin. So don't fall for it. Even if your affections are completely taken over, nobody can force you. Listen to his words. For so long as your will does not incline towards this passionate urge, you are still among the victors, among the fighters and slayers of the enemy. Even if your sympathy is already ranged on the side of the passion, nothing and nobody can force your will or steal victory from your hands and overthrow you against your will. God endowed our free will with such power that even if all a man's faculties, the whole world, and all the demons rose up in arms against him and attacked him, they could not compel him. It is always left free to desire or not to desire. Wow, what a beautiful word that is. That's number two. Don't mistake your feelings for a sin. And don't give up. Even if you feel like I've already put my feelings into that sin. If you haven't acted, you haven't sinned. So forget about it. Number three, take a step back. When you're right there on the edge, you're in the midst of the conflict, bullets are flying all around you, your body is exhausted, dirt's in your face, so to speak, and you don't have the strength to fight. This is when St. Nicodemus counsels, take a step back, recognize at that moment that if you rely on yourself and continue to rely on yourself, you're going to fall immediately. Take a step back, refresh your mind, and then lift your appeal to God. Listen to these beautiful words. Do what a warrior in physical warfare does sometimes when he is hard-pressed by the enemy. He steps back a little to find a better point of vantage, to see more clearly how best to speed his arrow to the heart of the foe. So you too collect your thoughts within, and reestablishing the consciousness and feeling of your nothingness and of your impotence to achieve by yourself what this moment demands, appeal to God, to whom all is possible, calling for his help against the attack, and with warmth of trust and tears, say, arise for our help, O Lord, redeem me for your mercy's sake. What a beautiful word. This is the third counsel when you feel like resistance is futile. Don't think you've fallen because your affections are gone. Instead, back off. Don't take any action that's going to be complicit with the enemy. Instead, look for a better place to stand. Back up. Flee. Get into higher ground so that you can reappraise the situation. Remind yourself then of your impotence, because the key to spiritual war is not depending upon yourself at all, but in humility and faith, depending upon God, who will certainly run to the help of his warrior who's calling upon his name in great distress. In these ways, we can not surrender. We can obtain victory when all hope seems lost. This is my great encouragement to you, dear ones. And I hope that the series that's coming out on demonology will be of great help to you. Keep your eyes out for it next week, and I ask your prayers. God be with you.
Now available at patristiccnectar.org. Patristic Nectar Publications is pleased to present a 5-part lecture series by His Grace Irenei, Bishop of London and Western Europe for the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, entitled Origins, Creationism, Evolution, and an Orthodox Theology of Creation. Well-known patristics scholar and respected archpastor, Bishop Irenei labors in this series to help believers approach the theology of creation from the presuppositions of the Church, instead of through the prisms of evolution and creationism. By an intensive examination of the foundational texts of Genesis, together with numerous sources from the Church Fathers, Bishop Irenei enables us to perceive the Church's own theological priorities and emphases when addressing the subject of creation. For these and other available titles, please visit our website at patristiccnectar.org.